It was supposed to be a quiet afternoon, the kind where the sun feels warm but not harsh, and the breeze carries the scent of blooming jasmine. My daughter Lena, bundled in her protective sun visor and long-sleeved UV hoodie, clutched a small packet of seeds labeled Hope Blossoms. She'd named them herself after her mother, who passed away last spring. This was our first time out in the new neighborhood park since moving to Willow Crest Estates, a place that boasted inclusivity and serenity in its glossy brochures. Lena had been excited for days to plant her flowers in the community garden patch designated for residents. She even drew a picture of where each flower should go. We had barely started when I noticed her hands shaking slightly, not from her cerebral palsy, but from nerves. A few people passed by and stared, some politely, others not. But we ignored them. That was until I heard the voice I'd already learned to dread. "That's not allowed here," came the shrill, clipped tone from across the stone path. I turned and saw her. Karen Linwood, platinum blonde bob, salmon-colored visor, clipboard in hand like it was a badge of authority. She marched up to us with the posture of someone who thinks they own the sun. I stood between her and Lena. "Is there a problem?" Karen's eyes dropped to Lena's visor and the shaded wheelchair with the little oxygen concentrator purring softly at her side. "This is a curated public space. That thing is an eyesore," she hissed. "You can't just bring medical junk into our garden. There are rules." Lena's bottom lip quivered. She looked up at me, confused and shrinking into herself. "Come on, sweetheart," I said softly, trying to shield her from the venom in Karen's voice. "You've got every right to be here." Karen didn't back off. If anything, her eyes narrowed with sharper contempt, like I had just challenged a queen on her throne. She shifted her weight, placing one hand on her hip, the other clutching her clipboard like a weapon. "You people think just because you slap a medical label on something, it gives you the right to ruin the atmosphere for everyone else." Her voice carried, drawing the attention of a few dog walkers and stroller-pushing parents nearby. Most slowed down. Some stayed to watch. I kept my tone even. "My daughter has a legal right to be here. Her equipment is ADA compliant, and this is a public facility funded by all residents, including us." Karen scoffed. "ADA doesn't give you permission to clutter up our community. This is a peaceful neighborhood, not a rehab center. It's bad enough we had to build that hideous ramp at the clubhouse. Now you're making a scene in the garden planting, what, mutant flowers?" "They're called Hope Blossoms," Lena whispered, barely audible. Her eyes were glassy. I bent down beside her. "Don't listen, honey. We're okay." Karen clicked her tongue. "If your daughter can't function like a normal child, maybe she shouldn't be brought to shared spaces. Maybe it's better for everyone." My hands clenched into fists, breath steady but sharp. "You're way out of line." She stepped closer, lowering her voice but not the malice. "This is your one warning. Keep that thing out of sight. Next time, I won't be so polite." I stared at her, stunned. Was that a threat? Karen smiled, lips curling without warmth. "Let's just say, I know how to deal with problems. And trust me, I've dealt with bigger ones than your crippled daughter." Lena flinched, and something inside me snapped, but I held it in. For now. The next morning, the sun broke through early, casting golden lines across the dew-speckled grass. Lena woke up excited, her little hands fumbling through her seed packets as she asked if we could finish planting the hope blossoms. I hesitated for a moment, thinking about Karen's venom the day before, but then I looked at Lena's face. Hopeful, innocent, completely unaware of how ugly people could be. I couldn't let one hateful woman rob her of this joy. We packed our supplies and wheeled over to the garden as the neighborhood was just beginning to stir. The spot we'd left yesterday was still there, undisturbed, with our small "Reserved by the Johnsons" placard staked in the soil. Lena clapped gently and began to hum as I handed her a tiny spade. She reached out, shaky but determined, to dig a shallow hole for the seeds. Her hat slipped slightly, and I adjusted it for her, smiling at the simple peace of the moment. Then I saw movement from the corner of my eye. Karen. She was striding across the field, faster this time, no clipboard, no sunglasses, just her, and something in her hand. A plastic bottle, opaque. She was muttering to herself, words I couldn't make out, but her eyes were wild, more unhinged than before. My stomach tightened. "Karen," I said, standing up, "you need to leave us alone." She didn't stop, didn't even blink. She marched right up to the edge of the garden bed where Lena was leaning over, gently patting the soil. "She doesn't belong here," Karen hissed. "I told you yesterday. I warned you. Don't come any closer. Let's see how that thing likes this." And before I could move, before I could even process the words, she uncapped the bottle and hurled the liquid straight at Lena's face. The scream that erupted from my daughter shattered every bone in my body. It wasn't a cry. It was a shriek of raw animal pain. She fell back in the chair, clutching her face, the sun visor already melting from the chemical reaction. I lunged forward, grabbing her, cradling her head, the stench of burning flesh and melted fabric flooding my nose. Her skin was blistering before my eyes. "What the hell did you do?" I roared, trying to rinse Lena's face with the bottle of water we'd brought, but it was too late. Her skin was peeling, one eye already swollen shut, the other trembling in terror. Karen stood there, unmoved, bottle still in hand. "Maybe now you'll learn." I screamed for help, voice cracking with panic. "Call an ambulance! Someone help us!" Lena's body trembled in my arms, her face a mess of red, angry welts and blistering skin. She couldn't open her mouth to cry anymore. The pain had taken her voice. Her tiny fingers clung to my sleeve, and every part of me shattered. A few neighbors had gathered at a distance, wide-eyed and frozen, but no one moved. No one came running. They just watched. Finally, someone called out that an ambulance was on the way. I held Lena close, whispering her name over and over, trying to keep her conscious. Her lips were turning pale, and her breathing was shallow. I soaked my shirt with the water bottle and held it to her face as gently as I could. She whimpered, but didn't pull away. Every second felt like an hour. Karen didn't leave. She stood there, clutching the empty bottle like a badge of righteousness. "It was just cleaning solution," she muttered to no one in particular. "It's not my fault if she reacted badly. That child is fragile anyway." When the paramedics finally arrived, I was on my knees, holding Lena's limp hand, soaked in a mixture of water, blood, and chemical burn. One EMT, a young woman with kind eyes, immediately called for a burn trauma alert. They carefully lifted Lena into a stretcher, securing her oxygen as they radioed for a burn unit. She was unconscious by then. Then came the police. Officer Thompson stepped out of his cruiser, adjusting his sunglasses like he was arriving at a parking dispute. He looked at Karen first. She smiled at him like they were old friends. "Hey, Clint," she said sweetly. "I'm so glad you're here." I rose to my feet, trembling with rage. This woman just threw acid in my daughter's face. Arrest her. Karen's tone changed instantly. "That's not true. I had a spray bottle of vinegar solution for weeds. It was an accident. He overreacted and got aggressive with me. I was trying to clean up the garden bed, and his daughter got in the way." Officer Thompson turned to me, expression unreadable. "Sir, I need you to calm down." "Calm down? Look at my child." I pointed toward the ambulance as it pulled away. "She's in critical condition because of her." Karen stepped forward. He was yelling, threatening me. I feared for my safety. I tried to stop him from harming the park. Thompson sighed, pulled out a small notepad. We'll document both sides, but there's no evidence of intent at this time. No evidence? I nearly screamed. She had a bottle. She said she warned me. She threw it at her face. We'll investigate, but unless I have clear proof of assault, I can't make an arrest right now. I stared at him, stunned. The woman who disfigured my child was standing right there, calm, smug, untouched. And the cop, the one meant to protect, was doing nothing. Then Karen leaned in, just loud enough for me to hear. Told you I don't lose, especially not in my neighborhood. The hospital lights were too bright, the walls too white, the air too cold. I sat motionless in the burn unit waiting room, still wearing the same shirt soaked with Lena's pain. Nurses had wheeled her away the moment we arrived, calling out codes and degrees of injury I couldn't fully comprehend. I tried to follow, but they stopped me at the double doors. I was left standing there, empty, stunned, as my daughter disappeared behind swinging metal panels. Time stretched, twisted. I didn't know how long I'd been sitting there when a doctor finally approached. He looked exhausted, his scrub stained, his eyes heavy. Are you Lena's father? He asked gently. Yes. Is she okay? He sat down beside me. She's stable now, but the burns are severe. 2nd and 3rd degree burns cover most of the right side of her face and neck. Her right eye has been damaged, possibly permanently. We won't know the full extent until the swelling goes down. I swallowed hard. Will she look the same? The doctor hesitated. There will be scarring, likely extensive. Reconstructive surgery is possible down the line, but we're focusing on stabilizing her right now. The next 24 hours are critical. I nodded slowly, my hands trembling in my lap. She's only 11. I know, he said. We're doing everything we can. After he left, I sat in that chair for a long time. The sound of beeping monitors echoed faintly down the hallway. I stared at the floor, at the blood-stained cuff of my jeans, and realized I hadn't cried yet. I couldn't. I was too full of something else, rage, helplessness, the crushing weight of knowing my little girl would never be the same. And the woman who did it was still free. The hospital room was dark, save for the faint blue glow of the machines beside Lena's bed. She lay there motionless, wrapped in bandages, a breathing mask over her face. Her right side was swollen beyond recognition. I hadn't left her side since the surgery, only stepping away to answer calls from insurance, or to argue with the officer who still insisted this was a civil matter. Each time I returned, I'd take her hand and whisper that I was going to fix this, that she didn't have to be afraid. But I was lying. I was afraid, terrified. That night, I remembered something. The kid with the tripod. A teenager had been filming something near the garden just before everything happened. I didn't even know his name, but I remembered his face. Shaggy hair, oversized hoodie, earbuds in. He was there. Maybe he saw something. Maybe he caught it. With shaking fingers, I posted to the Willowcrest Community Forum. To the teen with the tripod at the garden yesterday, if your camera caught what happened to my daughter, please message me. It could save her. I didn't expect anything. But 20 minutes later, I got a reply. Username, Tyler M16. We got it, everything, from the moment she walked up. My hands froze over the phone. Is it clear? I typed. Crystal, he wrote. She looked straight into the camera before throwing it. Said, let's see how that thing likes this. We backed up the video. We saw it all. I stared at the message for a long time before calling the only person I knew who might make this count. A civil rights attorney named Danielle Cho. She answered on the second ring. I didn't even finish explaining before she said, "I'll be there in an hour. Send me the video." Danielle Cho showed up at the hospital just before sunrise, wearing jeans, a blazer, and a steel-cold look that didn't soften even when she saw Lena's condition. She sat beside me, watched the video twice without blinking, then looked me in the eye and said, "We're going to bury her, and everyone who let her walk away." Within a week, Danielle had filed a barrage of lawsuits against Karen Linwood for felony assault with a deadly weapon, hate crime enhancement, and aggravated battery against a disabled minor. Against the Willow Crest HOA for enabling discrimination, failing to act on repeated complaints, and creating a hostile environment for disabled residents. Against the local police department for negligence and bias in failing to arrest Karen at the scene. And against my former employer, who had conveniently suspended me the same day for public disturbance harming the company's image. Karen, of course, played victim. She held a press conference with a PR team and claimed she was misunderstood, that she thought the bottle was non-toxic cleaner, and that I had created a hostile situation by provoking her. She even cried. Local news picked up her side first. Wealthy woman, respected HOA president, former PTA board member. The headlines were soft, sympathetic. But then Danielle released the footage. The image of Karen uncapping the bottle, her words caught perfectly on audio. "Let's see how that thing likes this." And the second that acid flew through the air and hit my daughter's face. It didn't take long to go viral. National disability rights groups jumped in. 3 separate law firms offered pro bono support. Public opinion flipped overnight. At the hearing, Danielle stood tall and fearless, laying out a case so airtight, even Karen's expensive legal team looked nervous. This wasn't a mistake, she told the courtroom. It was a hate crime against a child, and the system that tried to bury it will be held accountable too. The verdict came down 6 months later, in a packed courtroom where every seat was filled, and more people waited outside just to hear the outcome. Karen Linwood stood stiff in her tailored suit, her smile gone, her eyes dull. She didn't look like the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood anymore. She looked exactly like what she was, small, bitter, and exposed. The judge didn't mince words. Guilty on all counts. Assault with a deadly weapon. Aggravated battery against a disabled minor. Hate crime enhancement upheld. Karen's sentence, 10 years in prison, no parole for at least 7. The courtroom gasped. I didn't. I just looked at the empty chair beside me where Lena's wheelchair had been during the trial, and I thought of the scars she now carried, the eye she would never see from again. The Willow Crest HOA was dismantled completely. A state mandate replaced it with a public oversight committee after multiple residents came forward with their own stories of Karen's abuse. The police department was forced to launch an internal investigation. Officer Thompson resigned before it could finish. The court ordered a settlement large enough to cover every one of Lena's surgeries, therapies, and adaptive equipment. A portion went into a trust under her name. Another portion, at Danielle's suggestion, funded a new legal aid initiative for families facing disability discrimination. Karen didn't just lose her case, she lost her power, and the system that protected her learned that silence had a price. 1 year later, Lena sat beside me in the backyard of our new home, far from Willow Crest and everything it tried to take from us. She wore a soft cotton hat over the side of her face, the one still healing from surgeries, but she didn't try to hide anymore. In her lap was a sketch pad, her fingers moving slowly, carefully, across the page. "Look, Dad," she said, holding it up with a proud smile. The drawing showed a girl in a garden, flowers blooming around her, a bright sun overhead, and a soldier standing behind her with his hand on her shoulder. "It's called Still Growing," she said. I swallowed hard, brushing a tear from my cheek. She was right. We were still growing, through pain, through fire, through injustice. They tried to break her spirit. All they did was give her a reason to rise.